Thanks. Welcome, everybody. We do have quorum for the special budget committee meeting of January 9th, 2018. Glad to be up in North York. I think this is my first time as a budget chair coming up to North York to listen to deputations. So I want to thank you in advance of your speaking to us. This is one of a series of meetings that the Budget Committee, there are two subcommittees. We have separated ourselves into two separate entities to go across the city to listen to public deputations on the capital and operating budgets for 2018. This is the opportunity for members of the city, residents, to give their opinions, comments on the proposed 2018 budget. That will be, it's working its way through a process that'll end up at City Hall or City Council in the middle of February. This part of the process, as I said, is your opportunity to speak to us. It's an incredibly important part of the process because it gives us the opportunity as your elected representatives and officials to hear whether you support the budget, or if there are any particular aspects of it that maybe you want to advise us on. So we do listen very carefully. This is, again, the part where the public does get to put the input into the process. From there, in about a week and a half, the budget committee will come together. They'll make a decision on a proposed budget that'll go off to our executive and, as I said, off to full council in the middle of February. So this is the process we're in right now. We'll be meeting here for about the next 2 hours. Deputants who will be speaking, if you have spoken before, you probably know the procedures. You'll have and be allowed 5 minutes to speak to us at either side. There's two podiums that are set up with the microphones. So if you can come on down, introduce yourself. Again, you'll have 5 minutes to speak. There are timers to my left and my right up there. I will give you a bit of a nudge in and around a little bit before 5 minutes, just to say if you could possibly wrap it up. We try to keep to the 5 minutes because we have a number of people within a certain time frame that we want to get done. I tend to try to be a little bit flexible on that, but especially if you haven't spoken before. But again, try to hold your comments to the 5 minutes. I'd also like to acknowledge that we are meeting today on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and home to many diverse and indigenous peoples. And I just want to remind everybody that these sessions are being taped for public viewing. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none, I just want to introduce my two colleagues who are on the Budget Committee, Councillor Shelley Carroll and Councillor John Burnside. So we'll start with the first deputation. What I'll do is I'll name the next two or three after that, if you want to come down to one of the first seats to make time go by a little quicker. The first speaker will be Leila Karim, then after that Ryan Noble, then Josh Neubauer. Leila?
Hi. I just have a little bit of a visual support. If I know how to focus it. Oh, okay. Oh, my timer started. Okay, well, thank you. Sorry, I didn't give a heads up to the tech support team, so sorry about that. Good afternoon, members of the Budget Committee. My name is Leila Karim, and I am the Executive Director of North York Arts. Thank you for this opportunity to speak and your ongoing support of the arts community in Toronto to date. North York Arts is a local arts service organization designed to address the needs and interests of artists, arts organizations, and residents in North York by providing arts and cultural programming and services outside the downtown core of Toronto. We work in collaboration with city councillors, with the city's culture division, artists, arts groups, residents, and local businesses. We provide marketing and promotion support for arts events and programming in North York and professional development programs for local artists. We build the public's awareness of the vibrancy of North York arts activities and facilitate partnerships among North York arts groups and also groups throughout the City of Toronto. We work with diverse organizations that serve the newcomer, youth, and senior demographic. Since inception in 2011, North York Arts has built a very strong audience of 150,000 plus attendees and participants to various programs, events, and workshops in North York. We are very proud of our achievements with connecting with communities through programs and events, such as Sunday Serenades at Melasman Square, Beyond Access, Beyond the Creative at the Toronto Centre for the Arts, the Creative Leaders Youth Dance Program at Ephraim's Place Community Centre, just to name a few. In 2017, we developed new programming partnerships with Hot Docs, NIA Centre for the Arts, and the Four Directions Festivals. And we collaborated with the city and Sister Lassos on My City, My Six, a public art project to celebrate Canada's 150th. We are also continuing our outreach to develop partnerships with the business, educational, and social sectors to ensure that NYA will serve North York's diverse communities. North York Arts has great plans for the next phase of growth as an organization, and we're going to deliver on our current strategic plan to 2020. I know you're all aware of the benefits of the arts sector to the City of Toronto, and it has been clearly outlined in the Creative Capital Gains Report and recently in the Nordicity Report. However, I'd like to share some facts researched by the Toronto Arts Foundation. 97% of Torontonians see at least one benefit to the arts to the City of Toronto, that being in tourism, highlighting cultural diversity, or improving the city's economy. 85% of Torontonians see at least one benefit to the arts to their neighborhood. It makes a great place to live for the community. It builds a stronger sense of community, and it supports local businesses. The nonprofit arts sector brings in $8.26 in earned revenues for each $1 invested by the city, which in my opinion is a great investment and a great return on investment. So I asked the Budget Committee to continue on this wonderful momentum to support the arts and follow through with the recommendation to remain on track with the goal established by Council in 2003 to include the final installment of $2 million in the upcoming 2018 city budget to increase the investment to the arts to $25 per capita, which, like I said, was a goal by City Council in 2003. So of course, you've all seen me here over the years, and I'm here to celebrate the arts in North York, but for me, it's always about the impact to our community members. So I'd like to end this deputation with the testimonial from one of our youth participants from our Creative Leaders Dance Program at Ephraim's Place, just to illustrate how it just has an impact on individuals, and that's the impact of the arts. I think of what we learn in dance comes into everyday life. When you're new in a dance group, you feel shy to dance in front of people. It gives you more confidence. When you're around people in school, you don't feel so shy, and then you start to pull away, and you be quiet. But dance has allowed me to grow as an individual. Dance also helps me with my memory, and when I'm at school, I remember certain steps in my math questions. It makes my memory sharper. And that's from one of our youth participants in our dance program. So I leave that with you as high impact and individual impact of the arts, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much, Leela. Any questions? No, you did well. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Next is Ryan Noble. And after Ryan will be Josh Neubauer. Whenever you're ready.
Great. Good afternoon, Budget Committee. Thank you for having me here today, and thank you for taking the time to meet with community members to inform the budget decisions. As was said, my name is Ryan Noble. I'm the Executive Director of the North York Harvest Food Bank, and we're a network of food banks that operate from Highway 27 and Kipling in the west to Victoria Parkway in the east, from Steeles in the border of Toronto and York region, to the north and Midtown Toronto to the south. So we cross about half the geography of the city and multiple wards. We're headquartered in Ward 12, and personally I'm a resident of Ward 22. I'm here today to speak mainly about poverty reduction, the poverty reduction strategy, and its place in our city's budget. And I must admit that I feel a little as though myself and the city at large is a bit like the proverbial frog in the boiling water that doesn't realize the nature and the intensity of the crisis that it's in until it's far too late to do something about it. And in many ways, I think that is the state of poverty and income inequality here in our city today. So just to set the context briefly, we live in a city where 1 in 4 citizens are struggling with poverty. There was almost 1 million visits to food banks last year, and we know that as a food bank, we're only serving probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 of the people that could actually benefit from our service. So that 1 million visits to food banks could easily be 2 to 3 to 4 million if all the barriers were removed. In the inner suburbs, so where organizations like mine operate, North York, Etobicoke, and Scarborough, we've seen a dramatic increase in need. So 70% since the recession in 2008. If we were a for-profit company, we would be doing case studies at Rotman about how we manage that type of growth. Unfortunately, we're not, and it works the opposite way. And so we know that food banks are filling that vital role, but we also know that they do not replace good public policy, and they certainly do not replace a robust social safety net. And the reason for that is the reason that the root cause of people coming to food banks in the first place is lack of sufficient income to purchase food. And so specifically, the vast majority of food bank users in Toronto here in 2018 derive their income from Ontario Works or Ontario Disability Support, and what that means is that on a monthly basis, they have on average $813. And when you subtract the skyrocketing cost of living in this city, predominantly around housing, what that means is people are left with $7.33 on average. So if you just try to think how long it took you today to spend $7.33 is what food bank users are taking for all of their expenses, from food to childcare to healthcare, etc. And we know that to deal with these issues, that it will require support from multiple levels of government, from the provincial and the federal government. But there are things that we can do here at the municipal level in our budget that would make an immediate impact to people that are struggling with poverty today. So there was some discussion this morning I saw on social media around 2-hour transfers. I can tell you that there are thousands of food bank users that are rationing their tokens so that they don't have to spend that $7.33 entirely on transit. So what that means is people will walk 1 to 2 hours to a food bank because they know it'll be a lot easier to get home on transit carrying heavy groceries. So it would make an immediate impact on thousands of lives. But it also does not replace the need for a low-cost structural change, a low-cost fare system for low-income individuals. So I will encourage you to push in that direction. And I guess what is most frustrating for me and for organizations like North York Harvest is that we know what the solution to this problem is. We have a plan. In fact, the last time I deputed in front of a body like this was in 2015 when we encouraged the passing of the Toronto Poverty Reduction Strategy. And at the time, it was unanimously endorsed by council. We took that as a victory. There were articles written about a sweeping anti-poverty program, about Toronto being a leader in justice and the pursuit of equity. And sadly, we sit here now in 2018, 3 years after the passage of that plan, with the vast majority of the actions for 2018 still unfunded in the draft budget. Social Planning Toronto estimates that $38.4 million in programming that was outlined in that approved, endorsed plan for 2018 has yet to be funded. And so I'm here today to encourage you to find the political courage and to find the will to find ways to close that gap, to have the conversations with other Torontonians about the need for this, and to go to them with supportive organizations like ourselves to address the issue. If we do not, then what we will see is that the cost, both moral costs and cultural costs and city costs, but perhaps importantly for this body, financial costs will only get worse as the problem gets more complex, manifests itself in other aspects of our society, and costs more to cure than to prevent.
Thank you.
So I can see my time is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carroll.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Ryan, I have a question.
Sorry, Councillor.
Am I working? I'm working, yeah. Hi, Ryan. Thank you so much for your deputation. I read your tweet about the $7.33, and I realized that I was on my second one of these, so I'd already spent it. So I was kind of shocked. So you really want us to implement, you're not specific, other than the low-income fare, you just want us to make substantial progress on the poverty reduction strategy. Even if we can't do the 34, you want us to add some in.
Absolutely, and I stand here ready to support you on behalf of my organization and the clients that we serve to have those discussions. Because I realize discussions about new revenue tools, whether they're property taxes or new tools, are difficult for public officials to have. So I want you to know that as a leader of an organization, as an advocate for the tens of thousands of clients we serve, and as a voter and as a citizen of Toronto, that we're here to help, and we're here to support you with the data to drive those discussions.
So it might not be as difficult. I was amazed when we had the shelter crisis over the new year. A lot of the conversations on social media. It wasn't until I got back into the office that I realized people who never talked to me about poverty were calling and emailing my office saying, "Do something." So maybe it won't be that difficult a conversation. Should councillors build poverty reduction into the first paragraph of their budget town halls in January and February?
I believe absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your deputation. Next is Josh Neubauer. Then after that will be Dusha Suratharan, Patricia Brown, then Mary Hines.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much. I'm actually just here to echo Ryan's statements that he just very articulately presented to you. My name is Josh Neubauer. I'm an urban planner here in the city, and I'm vice chair of the board at North York Harvest Food Bank. So North York Harvest is at the front lines of both addressing hunger directly and also at the forefront of connecting food banking, traditional food banking, with longer-term food solutions. North York Harvest sees 16,000 people per month who need help putting food on the table. And at the same time, they also work continuously to improve access to other services and to partner with both the nonprofit and corporate sectors to provide actual job training, employment training, so people can have long-term employment solutions as well. Because we know that food security is actually, in fact, all about poverty. When people struggle to pay for their housing, for transportation, for heating, or for electricity, they cut back on food. They skip meals, and they often buy cheaper or less healthy food, which in the long term makes them sicker. The poverty and affordability crises that are experienced by all Torontonians are particularly and increasingly felt in the inner suburbs, where both North York Harvest and lots of other nonprofit organizations, many of whom are here today, are very active. There's been an increase of 68% in food bank usage in the inner suburbs since 2008. And so while the North York Harvest and other organizations work tirelessly and with the generosity of thousands of donors and volunteers to address the issues of poverty and hunger, we're getting to the point where the pride in our work has a lingering question behind it that we continue to ask ourselves. Why are we, the nonprofit sector, the ones doing this work? Why are feeding people or providing employment training or advocating for affordable and equitable transit service the roles of the nonprofit sectors? Where is the public sector, and where, in fact, is the city? The city gave us hope in 2015 when it prepared to step up and join us in the fight against poverty with the poverty reduction strategy, which it was unanimously approved by council. However, much of that plan, as you know, remains unfunded. And so the nonprofit sector remains relatively alone to address these major urban issues. So I'm here today to urge you to reassert the city's role in addressing poverty in Toronto, and in particular by doing a few things in this year's budget. Primarily, we believe that time-based transfers and equitable fares will make using transit more affordable and accessible for people who are not only trying to access food and other services, but also trying to reach educational and work opportunities. We also think the poverty reduction strategy as a whole is a very powerful, powerful poverty reduction tool and should be funded in its entirety. There are some specific aspects of that strategy which would be particularly useful for our organizations and organizations like us to do the work that we're doing. In particular, that would mean making city-owned spaces more accessible and affordable to help the nonprofit sector sustain its anti-poverty work, as well as advancing social procurement and social supermarkets to enable new and sustainable approaches to combating food insecurity. The overall message I'd like to leave you with is that poverty and hunger are not trivial concerns, and the solutions to addressing them are not nice-to-haves, as were recently sort of stated in the Toronto Star. The city did confirm its role in addressing urban poverty when it passed the poverty reduction strategy, and today I'm urging you to formalize that commitment by adding it in the 2018 budget. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Carroll.
So we're talking about 2-hour time-based transfers today because of
Glad you are.
social media. Is the food bank network ready for that? That is something that happens in Oriole Food Space in my area, for instance, because it's such for some of the people that are coming, for instance, people that were coming from Leslie Nymark would have to take a bus down, then a subway one stop, and then a bus back up.
Absolutely.
So is the food bank sort of gearing up for that, such that they can now take the TTC there, and if they arrive and they say, I'm on a transfer, you're going to process them and get them out of there with some food?
We always process people as quickly as we can when they arrive and give them service as quickly as we can, absolutely.
So if we actually make sure that the 2-hour time-based transfer is fully funded, and that we work on the low-income pass and hopefully fund that at some point this year, then the system around the people who will make the most, stand to gain the most from it. Will
Absolutely.
make maximum usage.
This will have a profound effect on the people that are seeking access, particularly at food banks who travel long distances with slower transit service than other parts of the city because the distances are larger with fewer services in between.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your deputation. Next is Dusha Sritharan.
Great, thank you. My name is Dusha Sritharan, and I work with the Toronto Environmental Alliance as a climate change campaigner. T recently celebrated 30 years of work in our city, working on a number of environmental issues, including climate change, waste, and toxics. Today, I'm here to ask for your full support in funding Transform TO, a plan to ensure that we're prepared for the impacts of climate change, one of the biggest challenges facing our city. In the summer of 2017, City Council marked an important milestone. Council unanimously adopted Transform TO for the long-term climate action plan for our city. It was an extraordinary moment in which Council unified its support to acknowledge that responding to climate change is a priority. What is most exciting about Transform TO is that it proposes bold new actions to create a green and prosperous city that will benefit our communities. It offers hope to all Torontonians, showing that climate investments can create good green jobs, improve public health, and alleviate poverty in our communities. From retrofitting Toronto community housing units to expanding our transit service and creating a renewable energy strategy for our city, the benefits of the plan are concrete and tangible. In December, when the operating budget was released, I remember flipping through at City Hall and being really disappointed to see that no funding was actually included for Transform TO. The same plan that just less than 6 months ago, City Council had unanimously adopted. Looking through the list of unfunded items, I was shocked to see that many other crucial strategies, including the poverty reduction strategy, the establishment of an Indigenous Affairs Office, and the Transit Fare Equity Pass were also unfunded. This is part of a concerning pattern emerging at City Hall, where ambitious plans are passed without the funds to actually implement them. As part of the budget process last year, Transform TO should have received $1.6 million. Instead, we saw an investment of $333,000, a fraction of the cost of a Toronto home. Not only was this disappointing, but it delayed the full implementation of the plan by a year, and now we can't afford another year of delays. Mayor Tory and City Council have made commitments to the residents of the city and on the world stage at meetings like COP21 and the North American Mayors Summit. We expect City Council to uphold these commitments. Through my work at T, I have the privilege of connecting with people across the city. Just last week, we had over 50 people on a really cold night show up to learn more about the budget process and how to take action on Transform TO. It's clear to us that the people of the city care about these issues and they want to see Council uphold its commitments. We are counting on you to ensure that there is full funding to implement the Transform TO plan, along with other essential plans and strategies that Council has committed to. My final point, and probably the most important point that I can make, is that we cannot continue operating the way we are on these budget issues. We cannot have councillors and members of community fighting for crumbs of the pie, debating how to fund actions that at the expense, for example, funding actions like climate actions at the expense of poverty reduction measures or improving transit service. These are all issues that are interconnected, and we need to have full funding and support for them. City Council must change the focus from dividing the pie to thinking about how we actually create a bigger pie, one that actually focuses on creating stronger priorities for our city and making sure that we can actually fund the things that we need to through new revenue tools and other measures. And as mentioned in other deputations, you have the support of community to make those changes, and we'll be there to make sure that this happens.
Thank you very much for your deputations. Questions from Councillor Carroll?
So, Dusha, we all sat in Scarborough last night, and I guess what we should tell you is that your meeting must have been very successful, because the room was full of actual Scarborough residents, but they all seemed to be focused on Transform TO. There was a woman there who said $2.5 million would catch you up. So that's about $1 a Torontonian. So, I guess that's something for us to seriously think about. Is the Toronto Environmental Alliance taking this message further out into, is your action central, or are you moving out into the inner suburbs to talk to people about what things would happen in our areas like this one?
No, absolutely. We're actually working with a number of different groups to make this tangible in other communities. So for example, Mount Dennis, they're actually working to become the first net zero community in Toronto. We're connecting with folks through the Bathurst Finch Hub, for example, not too far from here. So there's, efforts across the city, and we recognize that, one of the great things is I'm a resident of Scarborough. We need more people who are engaging with these things that are representative of our city. And I think even for us, having 50 people show up to an advocacy training, we were shocked to see how many people were actually from the suburbs. And I'll tell you honestly, we've done this work for a while, and it's really exciting to see new people engaging on this and recognizing how important it is to the city as a whole.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I have a question too. It's more of a clarification for you, but I'll just couch it in a question. But I just want to make sure that you're aware, and I think people in the audience would be aware, that as part of our process, and it's a process we do every year, whether we like it or not, it's a process of the city manager will give us their budget, and as he has done this year and he has done last year, there are a number of items, and we call them the new and enhanced, and these are the items like the poverty reduction, the Transform TO, that from the city manager's perspective need policy decisions that he can't necessarily make as a staff or bureaucracy, that it's really up to council. So what they do is they propose those to us in the new and enhanced, and even though they're technically not in the budget, and you're right in suggesting that they need to go in the budget, but it's not, and we do end up in like years past putting a vast majority or a good portion of those items into the budget. So you're aware that even though those items and Transform TO would be again the one that you were specifically talking about, I think it's about $2.5 million if I stand that is outside. That it doesn't mean that it won't be in the budget. It's just the process-wise of how the city manager provides us with the information to move forward. So I just wanted to clarify that you would be aware of that process.
Absolutely, I'm aware, but I'm also painfully aware that there's $40 million of actions that are currently listed in that unfunded list, and only $9 million has been presented right now. And so, having sat through the budget process last year as well, it's painful as community members to watch things that should not be on that list. I highlighted a few of them. It's not just about the climate change plan, but the poverty reduction strategy. These are things that, it's not about one issue. It's about how we're actually doing our budget process as a whole.
Yeah, and I agree, and it's as much of, I think, a challenge with some of my colleagues too in trying to recognize all those priorities across the city. So thank you. Next is Patricia Brown. And then after that will be Mary Hines, then Linda Kiger.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Patricia Brown. I am a senior. I'm 70 years old. I've lived in North York for 45 years from I immigrated to Canada. I'm looking around because I got an email this morning and it told me that our mayor was in Scarborough. I haven't seen him in North York since he became mayor. The first time I saw him was when he came to the opening of the subway. Why is North York not mentioned anywhere in your budget? I have been over it on several occasions. Are we not a part of the GTA? Why is North York being left in the dark? No one seems to think about the citizens here. We do pay taxes. We do vote. Why is North York being overlooked? The neighborhoods in the GTA, they're not going to show any decline for seniors. The past decade, your city planners projected that there would be an increase of 19.2%. The senior population of 65 and over, my apologies, I broke my dentures last night. I do apologize. The senior population age 65 has grown dramatically. These demographics are suffering from the lack of the important factors of consideration in the development, expansion, recreational services for the 65 age group. The City of Toronto Recreation Services Plan priority services across for several groups, yet no one recognizes North York. Until city planners start to include the seniors of North York and their need for, and I emphasize, housing and long-term care, recreational programs to support cognitive function, offering opportunities for social connection that promotes resilience to protect against loneliness and isolation, we will have increase in homelessness. It must be considered that the increasing numbers of seniors raises a question about the adequacy of Toronto's long-term care and support services. It will not meet both present and future. The council is subsidizing seniors' housing at present, as the social planners keep ignoring housing and leave it to the private sector, whom it seeks a profit market. When constructing, probably there should be a bylaw that includes that the construction companies include seniors' residence in their application, or a certain number of residents be set aside for seniors. In certain areas of the city, there are lots of condominiums going up. They may be low-rise, 7 to 10. However, in my area, which I've lived for over 29 years, on Shepherd Avenue west of Bathurst, you have approximately a whole block. These were, I'd say, they were family residents, 3, 4-bedroom houses.
You'll have to wrap up quickly.
Yes, sir, I will. That have been sold and blocked off, and nobody is doing anything. I have spoken with Mr. Pasternak over and over, asking why. You've only built 2 seniors' residents in North York, one on Kennard and one on Faywood, and it's a low-rise. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm asking, why is North York left off your budget? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your deputation. Questions? Councillor Carroll?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're aware. First of all, I have to say before I ask my question, here's the irony. Always, every year when we go to Scarborough, what we hear from residents of Scarborough is that they are dealt a much less fair hand than people from North York and downtown. So some of this is in the eye of the beholder. Expenses go out on a per capita basis, so expenses will of course be spent in North York. But my question is whether or not in your community you're being made aware of the city's efforts right now to in fact get to what we call inclusionary zoning. And while it won't be specific to seniors per se, it is actually asking that every condo developer be asked, instead of giving us cash, which we never quite get enough together to build housing ourselves, to actually include units that are either affordable or rent geared to income. I don't know if are you aware of those efforts? Are there meetings happening in your neighborhood? Anything that would inform you so that you can get involved in that fight with us?
Mr. Pasternak has kept me, I don't know for other citizens, but I'm always in his back.
Yeah.
And so he has kept me aware of some of the things that's being done. And he's having another community meeting next week. So I'm assuming he will be speaking to the rest of the community about it.
So one of the things you may want to look at in the budget, or ask Councillor Pasternak to help the community look at in the budget, there are both private and public seniors homes, but I don't know if you're aware, there are in fact reductions to long-term care, city-run long-term care this year and last year and the year before that and the year before that. We have been cutting the budget of our own city-run long-term care homes since 2011. And so if you're feeling shortchanged, along with Transform TO, along with poverty reduction, the things we've talked about today, the long-term care budget cut situation may also be that frog in the boiling water if your numbers come true, that 20%.
I'm using your numbers.
Yes,
These
indeed.
numbers are coming from city planners.
Indeed. Thank you so much for that.
And I would ask, please, please, do not ignore the seniors.
Yeah.
We have nowhere to go. The only people we can talk to is you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Patricia.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Next is Mary Hines, then Linda Kiger.
Hi, I'm another senior and a resident of North York for 40-something years. I thank you for this opportunity, but j'accuse. I accuse you of having 12 strategies for service plans, lacking up to $41 million this year alone. I accuse you of unanimously endorsing the poverty reduction strategy, TO Prosperity, but not funding to make it happen. I accuse you of delaying implementation of the first phase of the Fair Fare, the Transit Fare Equity Program. You are still going to give me a discount, but my disabled son must pay over $3 for every ride. I accuse you of doing too little toward building affordable and supportive housing. We need more shelter beds, but more truly affordable housing will reduce the need for shelter beds. I accuse you of having an underfunded recreation service plan, long waiting lists, cutbacks to the welcome policy, increases to recreation fees, lack of funding to reopen community pools, missing funding for Swim to Survive. The list goes on. My affluent neighbors can choose gym membership or swimming at the cottage. You are increasing, not reducing, the division between the haves and the have-nots. I accuse you of valuing a healthy environment with the Transform TO initiative, but not funding many initiatives. I accuse you of neglecting our most important community hubs, the public library. Our communities need the youth hubs, increased Sunday hours, increased access to Wi-Fi hotspot lending. I don't know how much time you spend on libraries for internet access. I don't know how much you spend on, I don't know how much time you spend in libraries, for internet access, for places to study, or as cooling and warming centers. I am in my local library several times a week. I see people arriving at the library as the library is opening to use the computers, and the students huddling together working on projects or studying. I accuse you of not funding a number of equity initiatives, funding to help our fire services hire more inclusively, funding for an Indigenous Affairs office, funding for AODA at City Hall. I accuse you of having a good heart, of wanting a fair and inclusive city, but I also accuse you of lying. You are lying to residents by letting us think we can have a city for all, a city that wants to reduce poverty, a city that cares about the environment, a city that values equity, but you don't want to spend for a fair and just solution. Please increase my property taxes so my neighbors can have the services they need. Please increase my taxes so fees do not increase for my neighbors who cannot afford the higher fees. Your job is to spend wisely, to be wise custodians of our tax dollars, and to spend for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Questions? Seeing none. Next is Linda Kiger, then Cecilia Frank, and after that will be Mylene Perino. Is Linda here? Okay, next will be Cecilia Frank.
Good afternoon. My name is Cecilia Frank, and I would like to start by thanking the Budget Committee for the financial support that we've been receiving towards our student nutrition program. Like I said, my name is Cecilia, and I am the Student Nutrition Coordinator for St. Matthias Catholic Elementary School. We are part of Ward number 33, and what we currently run is the morning meal program, which serves up to 270 students per day, and our numbers keep growing. Our program typically covers the 3 food groups, which could be fruit and vegetables, dairy and alternatives, and grain products. I would like to give you an example of our typical menu that we offer the students. We do, every day could be apples, string cheese, whole wheat crackers, English muffin, pizzas, cantaloupe slices, whole wheat cereal with milk, and our ever favorite, the grilled cheese sandwich with vegetable sticks. Our program is universal. Every child is offered to take part into the program, irrespective of their ability to contribute financially. We also keep in mind religious restrictions, as well as we work on a personal level with parents of students to accommodate students with allergies. We currently receive funding from both the civic and the provincial government, and we also work with parental donations and local communities. We do currently have 2 volunteers at our facility, and we're looking to increase that number. I would like to tell you how we stretch our current dollar to make our morning meal program work. We are often asked, what does this program do for children? I would like to say that an enriched body is an enriched mind. Since we have students from various cultural backgrounds, our morning meal program constantly introduces children to new foods. We are always changing and opening mindsets to new foods and food groups, and we offer a culturally diverse menu. We also make food more appealing by emphasizing on the presentation of food. I have been asked, how do the children receive this morning meal program? What do they say about the morning meal program? What is their reaction? When I walk into school and the children run up to me and say, Miss, what is on the menu today? That's the first step achieved, because attendance. They are there at school to ask me that question. I would like to share a couple of stories where we have introduced children to new foods. Being part of the city, Ward 33, we have a constant influx of new immigrants. Currently, we have a very strong influx from children from the Middle Eastern backgrounds. So we've introduced hummus, we've introduced whole wheat baked samosas. The days preceding Christmas, we introduced the Santa Claus melon, which was accepted wholeheartedly. Everyone wanted to be on Santa's nice list. Our school is a nut-free school, like most schools in the GTA, but we do have students with severe allergies, so I've personally made sure I work with parents to read labels, to know what we should be getting for kids with allergies. We also ran a grilled cheese promotion, much like the Willy Wonka chocolate factory and the golden ticket. We introduced new foods through the grilled cheese promotion, where children had to identify a new ingredient and come back to us to receive a prize. Having said that, the challenges we face currently is the civic and provincial funding covers barely 30% of the cost. Yes, 30% of the cost of what we spend every day. We also know of the rising cost of unprocessed healthy foods as opposed to something given packaged, right? And the availability of volunteers. Having said all of that, how does this program impact newcomers into our community? Firstly, when a newcomer walks into our school and a basic need is met, they see a familiar food, they feel accepted. So social eating, what we are trying to promote, inculcates a strong sense of community, inclusiveness, and positive influence on eating habits.
Have to wrap up, please.
Yes. Finally, I would like to leave with this one thought. The children are our future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Question?
Questions? Councillor Carroll has a
Shelley.
question for you.
Quick question. So in terms of topping up, if we find more in the Chair Crawford has talked about, hopefully finding a little bit more to fix some of the areas. We always end up at the last minute, and it ends up being after we've had all the deputations, having to decide between whether or not we improve the quality of food in the existing programs or we expand the number of existing programs. How's the quality of the food going, or do we need to make sure that the existing programs have
We probably
more
would need
funds
to
for that?
increase, yes, we would need to increase, and the rising cost, right, of
Yeah.
unprocessed food is increasing. Like just today, I received invoices for the new year, and everything has gone up by 5, 10, or 15 cents per child,
Right.
per piece. So it is a small amount, but it does add up to a bigger amount. We're looking at a whole school, so.
But there are some schools that are reaching out and saying we need to start a program as well. Do we still have some expansion to do?
I guess so, yes,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
so.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you so much.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you much for your deputation. I just wanted to, Patricia, Brown wanted to mention that, just been informed that the mayor actually will be here at 6 p.m. to listen. So if you want to stick around and say hi to him, he will be here at 6 p.m.
And he has been around North York.
Yes. Next is Mylene Perino. And then after that will be Kathy Gaziuk, and then Barry Mitchell.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mylene Pareno, and I am a nutrition coordinator at St. Robert Catholic School along Bathurst in Bainbridge area. So, the type of program I am serving is a morning meal, considered a morning meal, which is a snack for morning first recess. So I run the program for 2 years now. So, and then mostly I came early to school to prepare for kids' snack, because what challenge I am facing right now is a lack of my volunteers. Everybody, I know, and then I understand that people are working to support their family as well. So, but that's a big challenge for us. So I noticed when I start the programs, like every month there's a newsletter for kids, and then I don't see that, I can see the advertisement that they need a nutrition coordinator. So, and then I decided to apply, and then I started. Since now we're running 2 years now. So we started like 2 food groups, then gradually, slowly increasing to 3 food groups. Now we're in three food groups, and then 4 days in a week. So I started in a changing room because we don't have enough area yet. But through the effort of our current principal, so I moved to an area where there's a sink. I can clean the bin, which I have 26 bins in all. So before, when I'm in a change room, there's no sink, so I have to move somewhere else, staff room, everywhere that I can clean every week. So that is a quite challenge for me as well. So I'm so passionate of helping people. If I'm not in the nutrition program, I'm at a retirement home working as a nurse. So that is like different path, but same thing as to help people. And the other one is seniors, and the other one is kids. So in terms of the allergy for school, so I managed to put 1 bin each, small bin for kids with allergies. So even I'm not around, volunteers can separate food. That's the same nutrition as the one who without any allergies. So the program typically serves grains, whole wheat in particular, or whole grain, which we follow the public health nutrition guides. So mini pita, melba toast, mini bagels, fruits and vegetables, cucumber, cantaloupe, carrots, apples. Taking in particular, I have 622 students. If sometimes I don't have volunteers, I clean the apple, 620 or 650 apple by myself, cutting cantaloupes by myself as well. But to tell you, I'm passionate helping kids. So our menu looks like mimicking the foods that kids eating at home. And then also, which is also appetizing for kids, and most in particular is safe and then healthy for them. As I'm telling you, I served 622 students, and the program is universal, regardless of their financial contributions. So we serve everybody, regardless of their cultures and religions. But except, I'm so like paranoid with kids with the allergies, so I'll make sure that everybody's safe. In terms of the volunteers, I told you it's quite limited. I have that volunteer since the beginning of my program and still with me right now. So, and every end of the year, which they're like, for example, Christmas, we always celebrate like 4 of them, each of them like a Polish, another one, I'm a Filipino background, and then Canadian itself. So we brought our food like from our country, like, and then we serve each other, and then some parents, teachers are coming back and forth to us and like celebrate with us. That's how happy my community is. So the feedback from parents are positive, like maybe like 0.2% is negative, 2 to 3% saying, oh, this is the same food as I prepared for my kids. But some other parents and teachers are sending like letters, or kids are coming back to me and say, hey, thank you so much for the meal, for the snack today, which is a good feedback, like very, very positive one.
We'll have to wrap up, please.
Oh, okay. So what my a challenge for me is the budget. That's what because how can I say to kids like, oh, I have to end up the program because we don't have enough budget. Parents contributes, but I cannot depend on it. And then I am so thankful for the city to contribute for us as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carroll.
Yes, thanks so much for all your work. So you have a really ongoing problem keeping volunteers. Is funding the program, does it have an impact on the volunteers as well? If we're funding you such that you're not wringing your hands over keeping the program adequate, does that does that encourage more volunteerism and the parents continuing to make their contribution when they know you've got a solid program that's
Yeah.
well funded?
Actually, this last year, December, the last newsletter, I told the principal to send like a volunteer form.
Yeah.
And then I also put the information about nutrition program, because I don't know if everybody is aware, but we sent letters to parents about the nutrition program at school. So we're keeping hoping, and then asking someone to come over, help, even just 1 hour of their time.
So if we were able to go beyond just making sure that we were getting enough out there for food, but if we were doing some volunteer sort of spirit raising, that would actually help the program survive as well.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Next is Kathy Guziak. Welcome, Kathy. You'll have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, council members and budget committee. It's truly my pleasure to address everyone here today at this very important meeting. As you've heard, my name is Kathy Gaziak, and I'm not only the principal at Willowdale Middle School, but I'm also an educator of over 30 years. Throughout my career in education, I have had many exciting opportunities to experience firsthand innovative and engaging programs and services for students. However, I can honestly say that few have made such a significant change in the school culture as does introducing a student nutrition program. A few years ago, when I started summer school at Willowdale, I was able to witness firsthand the benefits of a student nutrition program. Following this brief summer experience, I enthusiastically spoke to the parents in attendance at the school council meeting about the many benefits of having a student nutrition program at our school. Not surprisingly, many parents were not sure that we needed it at Willowdale. I then shared with the parents some of the research that has shown that there is a direct relationship between healthy nutrition and the academic achievement of students. I explained that students who are well nourished are ready and able to learn, and that they are better able to concentrate and have an improved ability to retain and apply informationally. But most importantly, I explained to the parents that during the preteen and early teen years, children are growing at a faster pace than any other time in their lives, and yet they are the worst eaters at that time. I then explained to the parents that the nutrition program reflects the uniqueness of each individual school and are supported by a local student nutrition advisory committee. I explained how our program would be locally designed and would be well suited to the middle school student needs. Moving forward with 2 other very enthusiastic staff members, we began a student nutrition program at Willowdale in the fall of 2016. Our committee decided to adapt a grab-and-go model, which allowed students to self-select their meal. And in fact, it's not unusual for students to come back for seconds and thirds. Another unique aspect of our program is that students do the fundraising activities at the school to help contribute to the expenses. This not only adds an educational component to the program, but also ensures that all students are able to participate in this program free of charge. Now in our 2nd year, our advisory committee has grown. We have student volunteers who assist with the setup and cleanup. We have a parent volunteer who assists with our monthly accounting. And just about every staff member at Willowdale participates in some way with the program, even if it's just coming to the cafeteria and socializing with the students while they're having their breakfast. Literally 5 days a week, there are hundreds of motivated, engaged, happy students eating a healthy, nutritious breakfast at Willowdale. We feel confident that our program is not only developing excellent nutritional habits in our students that will last a lifetime, but it has also improved peer relationships and developed a strong sense of community with students and staff. Interestingly, when the parents at Willowdale updated the school statement of needs this past October at the school council meeting, the parents are so proud and impressed with this program that they made a point of including in the statement that any future principal at Willowdale must be supportive of the student nutrition program to ensure that this valuable program is never stopped at Willowdale. But regardless, student nutrition programs can only continue to exist with your essential ongoing funding. Thank you for your financial support thus far, and thank you also for allowing me to share our success story with you.
you very much. Next is Barry Mitchell, and after that will be Atu Situ and Tomislav Svoboda. Welcome, Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you. I'm here to talk about Transform TO today. I want to talk specifically about how Transform TO can help us deal with a serious problem that we have, and that is climate lag. I think nearly all of us can agree that climate change is real, it's important, and we should do something about it. But climate change is not an instantaneous, catastrophic event. It is a slow-moving issue that on a day-to-day basis, people don't experience, they don't even see. We all have lives that are lived primarily in the present. We are conscious of the future looming, but our attention is normally on the present. And I've heard enough submissions and depositions to the Budget Committee to know that the present is very important. The programs that you hear about are very, very important. But unfortunately, climate change itself is important as well. We know already that 1 degree centigrade increase from the pre-industrial times has already been translated into extreme weather, so the storms and the floods and the droughts that we know about. And we know at present that if all the countries who signed in Paris completed their commitments, we would still be facing an increase of approximately 3 degrees centigrade. So this is a very serious problem. Arctic ice, melt, and droughts would be the least of our problems at that point. We'd be worried about massive methane discharges, things that could lead to runaway global change. We want to do everything we can to avoid that, not for ourselves, but for future generations. And therein lies the problem. We all have primary responsibility for our day-to-day lives. We don't consider the future every day. This is true for every one of us. Most of us know about the need to do something right now to deal with climate change, but we still take trips on airplanes, drive cars, eat beef, and do lots of other things that give us pleasure in the short term, without too much thought or not adequate thought of the long term. I believe Transform TO's plan is helpful in reconciling this lag or gap between the present and our responsibility to future generations. It describes the current trend in emissions, it notes how challenging the task is, but then it describes a plan that offers hope for future generations while offering benefits to those of us who live in the present. For example, one of the highest priorities for Transform TO will be retrofitting existing buildings to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. This will mean thousands of jobs over the next decade or so. The transition to electric vehicles and the growth of renewable energy will similarly create opportunities in the near future, not the distant future. And there will be many other new jobs that we can't even imagine yet. To succeed in this transition, we will need large investments from both the provincial and federal governments, as well as from the private sector. Transform TO helps to identify those opportunities and lay the groundwork for profitable businesses and new employment for Toronto citizens. But it is important that Toronto show its commitment to Transform TO right now in the 2018 budget. There was no money in the preliminary budget, so I'm asking you to add the amount identified by staff as the appropriate amount for Transform TO for 2018. I think it's slightly over $2 million. In other words, a year's investment in Transform TO for less than $1 per resident. Transform TO's integrated plan shows us that investing in climate actions today can also help us discharge our responsibility to future generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carroll.
Mr. Mitchell, thanks so much for coming. You raised that's the one thing we haven't heard about today. You raised the economic argument for proceeding with Transform TO, and That same person who said it was a dollar per resident for us at Scarborough yesterday talked about the employability. If we spend the $2.5 million this year to catch up so the first 2 years are done, and the hiring later on will be creating jobs such that for every dollar we get 14 back.
Yeah, that's what I understand.
That was like buying a change purse at the dollar store and finding $14 in it.
Yeah, that's what I understand. I think the payoff will be substantial.
If you don't mind my asking, you're a senior citizen, and that's unusual when we get climate change deputations. In the seniors community, can we make the argument to them that we have to do this work, even though it's to change something that will be an impact in 2050 if we do nothing?
I think we can. I think the seniors that I associate with are acutely aware of the problem. They worry very much about what the future will be for their children and grandchildren. But unfortunately, they've been patterned to spend money in a certain way. The benefits of the fossil fuel economy that goes back a couple of hundred years is very seductive. I think what they're looking for is some leadership from governments and from other groups to begin to change change the possibilities. But I think they'll support that. As individuals, they're perhaps not as active as they could be, but I think many of them that I speak with are very concerned about climate change. They don't understand all of the science, but they definitely would like to see some leadership on it.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your deputation. Next is Atu Situ and Tomislav Zvoboda.
Hello, my name is Ato Setu. I am an artist, a visual artist. I live in North York. I moved up here over 20 years ago when gentrification started in Toronto to escape the Queen Street price hike of housing and accommodation. I am very much engaged with the arts in North York. I'm more so focused within the Jane and Finch community. And since the reinvention of the North York Arts Organization, it has been very, we have been working together since. My major drive of interest is that the artists need to live and eat and survive, no different than anyone else. So we will need a bit more structure in the arts. I would like to see the same thing that is offered for the music, where Mike Tanner have an office at City Hall downtown. And I don't see why we can't have something that is encompassing, including all the other arts, so we can have that relationship. I know that music is the daddy of the arts because it can bring out thousands of people and so forth, and big corporations support it and money, but we're still artists. And the arts, there's no difference really between the arts. All the arts use the chromatic scale, right? And art today is going back to its traditional role, where the arts are integrating, not visual over here, not music there, not theater there, but now there's a lot, they call it inter-arts, right? So I think that we should be looking at some kind of conference and reference, and it can be done through the North York Arts, to really sit and discuss and map out the role of the arts in North York. It's new, more people is moving up. Also, it's service, good service can be provided, that also included, like what the lady speak earlier about the question of seniors. I'm a senior. And recreational and the arts. As we know, dementia is one of the biggest issues, and they found out that arts are very instrumental in helping dementia. So North York is the new growth area of interest for the arts. North York also is very important to visual artists and prop designers, because now most of downtown, all those companies have moved up to North York now. So there's an industry that supports the arts that is establishing also in North York. So the opportunity to land, I would like to see a coordination develop between Downsview Park and how it can be used more for the arts. Not just concerts, but visual art festivals and even activities that seniors can participate in on an ongoing manner. So for me, it is very crucial that that gets into place. We have structures in North York that allow us some great opportunities, like York University. And we have a community that is very rich with artistic talent, like Jane and Finch. And nothing is happening in that community in a real way to harness the artistic talent for financial success for the artists, and also as an upliftment to the community. I have some brochure here with the coming of the, okay, 5 minutes up.
You'll be give us our brochures afterwards.
Yeah, I'll give you the brochure relating to the coming of the hub, the transportation on Jane and Finch. And we are applying for community benefits. And one of that is to have an arts hub and a community center on the same piece of land that Metrolink is looking at putting the garage for the rapid transits.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Atu, for your presentation. Questions? Seeing none. Next is Tomislav Zavoboda. Is Tomislav here? Okay, we have two more people who brought their names forward. Adam, I believe it's Wetstein.
Hello, my name's Adam Wetstein, and as Monty Python used to say, and now for something completely different. I'm here to ask for two budget line items. One is a $1,200 item to put a gas line into Gibson House. Presently, they're spending $30,000 a year to heat the place because they don't have a gas line that's 10 feet away. And the same with the Living Arts, I think it's called the Loving Arts Daycare Center. So that's one thing. And then the second is, I'm a heating designer, and we have a huge benefit that we could take from Section 37 numbers, in which we could actually air condition almost every subway stop. The subways, all of the huge buildings that are have what are called chillers on top of them. They're always oversized. And by drilling 2 holes through the garage door into the subway station, you can pump cold water. In fact, in the downtown, you'd use N-Wave, so you don't even have to use electricity. And it would cost about $100,000 a station to cool them. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Shah Mohidudin. You'll correct my pronunciation of your last name, I hope. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for allowing me to speak. So hello everyone. So my name is Shah Mohiuddin. I am a community animator in ward number 35, Scarborough. Thanks to the city budget committee to arrange the budget deputation meeting and the participants and residents to attend the meeting to raise their voices, to utilize the budget in the right and appropriate areas. The city budget committee prioritized fund for the poverty reduction strategy. That's a good idea. I appreciate for this planning, for this thinking. But most of the countries in the world, it has been found that food shortage is due to poverty. Poverty is happening due to food shortage. And the food shortage is due to land shortage, or the foods are damaged due to natural calamities or natural disasters. But Canada or Toronto have lots of empty and vacant or unused productive and fertile lands are not being totally used, but still there is poverty, food shortage. So in different food safety and food policy meetings, I have mentioned in Toronto, every parks, there should be one food garden and pollinator garden. Not only park area, even school area. So if that is happening, because pollinator garden and food garden side by side, it means the pollinator or the flowers garden, they will beautify the area, and also they will pollinate the plants. Pollinate, we know, just mating or the mix up of the male and female organ to produce food. If these are being done, then the food shortage or the community of that area will get their green, fresh, healthy, nutritious food. And also school kids will be benefited. They will learn how to do gardening, and also they will get healthy food. They will be protected from being malnutrition and also obesity issues. So as we have enough land, we can utilize this for growing more food. And we need not to bring outside food. We can save money, and also we need not to use frozen food. So that's why I would ask the budget committee to give more budgets on growing food and also these gardening areas. And also this will help garden or plants. We know they improve the environment, and also they reduce greenhouse gas emission due to climate change issues. So multi-benefit. And the community, those are doing gardening, they can integrate it themselves, they can socialize, they can make networking. So lots of benefits are getting from that one. So, and I'm also living at that Taylor-Massey neighborhood area that is in Scarborough. Most of the residents and neighbors of that area are from Asian, South Asian, West Indian, African. And they are all, most of them are all skilled and experienced in gardening or farming. So they can utilize their skills to grow more food in Canada, because Canada has, or Toronto has lots of lands, unused land. And we have also proposed one area in that area, in, what is it called, Dunston and Massey area. But unfortunately, the city council did not approve that area for gardening. We went to John Tory Mayor also. He also requested, but I don't know what's the policy. Some garden coordinator of city, he's telling that in one ward should be one garden. But there is lots of interested people there. So why not more than one? Anyway, so I request for more gardening, more urban agriculture scope in Toronto, because there is lots of land, unused land. And in the park, there is more space. So I would request to the budget committee to allocate more budgets in this area. Thanks for listening.
Councillor Carroll has a question.
Thank you so much for raising this issue. I don't know, because it sounds like you're working with that community where the answer was no to opening a garden. And I'm wondering if people know how we get to the point where councillors worry when they open a garden now. Years ago, back in the late 50s, when I first became a councillor, we had one of the first suburban community gardens that we opened at Advent Lutheran Church in the Peanut. And at that time, if we go back, they were talking 2005.
Okay.
You got an animator whose job it was to be there every day. You might have lots of people come from other lands and they know how to garden, even though they're living in high rises, but they've gardened before. But an animator comes in and makes sure that the program gets going, and you know who to phone to get somebody to put a compost pit and all that stuff.
Yes,
so they're really set up for success.
Yeah.
And we could put in a park strategy. We're good at planning strategies. We're at the point now where we need a strategy. We have so many strategies. But we set up a strategy and say we want more community gardens, but then each year when we ask the department to make reductions, this year it doesn't sound like a cut to community gardens, but when you say one of the things we're saving is savings from increased supervisory span of control with the elimination of 7 positions, what that means is the staff on the ground to make sure there is someone to animate and make sure the garden is a success isn't going to drive by, aren't going to drop by, aren't going to make sure it happens. But it doesn't look in the budget like here's a cut to community gardens. It's just a slow withering away of the people who make sure that community gardens and other parks things succeed. I don't know if people realize that that's why councillors say we can't put a community garden there. Because we worry that we'll set up something the community is disappointed in themselves because it didn't succeed.
Not really disappointed.
You're asking us to invest more in community gardens, but also the people that would make them succeed.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for realizing this.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that people aren't asking, please give us a community garden, we'll do everything. You still need that person to come by and help you make it succeed.
Yeah, of course. We'll keep touch with you also. Thanks.
Thank you.
And also I appreciate that the City Council also approved the backyard hand proposal.
Yes.
It is very appreciable, but I think it is only limited four ward.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it needs to extend also because this is very popular also.
That's good to hear too. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks again.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, that's the last on our list. Does anybody else want to make a deputation at all? Just if you can give your name, and then the clerk, so you have to give your name.
My name is Jeff Cattell. I actually was registered, so I'm not sure why I wasn't on the list.
Oh, okay.
I've got...
You have to give it to the clerks as well.
I got a copy of early Christmas present for next year. For this year.
Here, you have mine. Okay, if you can just give your name again.
Actually, I did email it a couple of days ago to the Budget Committee. So it's on the public record somewhere. Okay, my name is Jeff Cattell. I'm chair of the North York Community Preservation Panel. There are 4 community preservation panels whose members are appointed by City Council. We have a mandate to identify potential heritage properties and districts and work to protect the cultural heritage specifically in this community in North York. Councillor Carmichael Grab is the council's representative on the panel. So preservation of Toronto's heritage, both built heritage and cultural heritage landscapes, are vitally important to Toronto's economy, culture, tourism, and our spirit, our collective spirit. Heritage is about building an embedded sense of place, about where we are, that makes Toronto distinctive from other cities. Heritage preservation and conservation increases employment, especially for skilled workers, encourages the development of a diverse and vibrant city with character. and supports environmental sustainability and the conservation of our material and energy resources. The important and unique role of heritage in building a vibrant, memorable, desirable city is increasingly recognized by our world cities. But heritage in Toronto is challenged in two ways. Firstly, from protecting potential built heritage from ongoing demolition threats through listing and designation, and secondly, preventing the loss of built heritage that's already supposedly protected. The outrage over the loss of the BMO Bank in North Toronto about a year ago, and similar situations in recent years like Stollery's at Yonge and Bloor, the Empress Hotel, Yonge and Gould, the Odette House, Wellesley Street East, and Briar Hill Elementary School at Lawrence and Dufferin, reflects the love and concern of Torontonians for their city and for its built heritage. In addition, though less recognized, there is continuing erosion of our distinctive streetscapes in planned neighborhoods such as Leaside, Lawrence Park, and Don Mills. And that's the booklet I just handed out. The loss of our heritage through demolition and replacement with buildings that simply do not fit in with the neighborhood character, or replacement buildings being approved, commercial and institutional uses, or by fire, whether by willful action, neglect, or otherwise, is a continuing concern. So what's special about North York? In North York, the greatest heritage legacy is arguably that of modernist architecture, sometimes the brutalist architecture. From the 1960s to the 1980s, not that long ago, it's the heyday of North York's rapid growth and development. This is when Toronto grew from a mid-sized city into Canada's largest metropolis and a world city. Not only are modernist buildings in North York unique and experimental, they are artifacts from that period of remarkable growth and should receive the same respect and treatment as 1920s skyscrapers in North York. It's also a reminder that heritage is not just a downtown concept. We need a heritage department that attends and is resourced to deal with the whole city and not just the Victorian neighborhoods. The process of identifying and listing properties has been essentially reactive and has resulted in a backlog of hundreds of properties to be investigated and reported on. The existing stock, over more than 8,000 structures. But until very recently, very few properties are added to the city's inventory annually. We would applaud the innovative approaches now being employed by city planning, firstly by including heritage as a regular component of area planning studies, like Lead in Focus, like Midtown in Focus, and secondly, by undertaking cultural heritage resource assessments. That's a long word, but it means identifying properties as a block and just looking at them individually, but with less detail, and then listing them, which provides protection against all of a sudden getting them demolished. And it provides an opportunity for second thoughts about designation. This has recently been done in the Yonge-Eglinton secondary plan. The other issue, the need to ensure that heritage buildings legally protected through designation are not lost, has recently come to public attention with the case of 401 Richmond Street, the arts and not-for-profit center down there at Richmond and Spadina, yes, which faced massive increases in taxes due to reassessment.
You'll have to wrap up.
3:38. Oh, I'm sorry, I was watching over there. Well, what can I do? You've got my notes. I mean, we basically, just to finish, we continue to support the need for additional staff resources for city planning, heritage. Ultimately, staffing should be increased such that heritage planners can be part of community planning district teams, like here in North York. There's no heritage staff. It's all downtown. So they're providing a heritage perspective on the ongoing matters. And Heritage Preservation Services should become a branch in the city planning, not just a section.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Councillor Carroll?
That was the question I was going to ask you. When we have a heritage issue, and it's often in Leaside, a special guest star comes up to our community council. You have a more vast knowledge than I have, or I think even my colleagues here today have. outside of Leaside, and Leaside's often been both homes and some of the corporate area has been a conversation here. But are we dedicating any resources right now to Don Mills, and what was the third neighborhood?
Lawrence Park.
And
Well, just quickly, Lawrence Park.
Park a bit, yeah.
Lawrence Park is coming to Planning and Growth next week. It's going to be looked at as a Heritage Conservation District, HCD, so it's going to get some good attention. Leaside.
For instance, we did we did our big business park review in
commercial
Consumers Next
yeah,
out in my area.
yeah.
I don't know that anybody looked at, are any of these office buildings a good mid-century modern example, and we got to keep them?
Exactly. I was thinking about that. I think it preceded the policy in planning to do heritage as part of a planning study. Unfortunately, kind of just, the train had left the station, unfortunately. But I remember thinking, I don't see any heritage aspect when it came to North York Council. It's too bad.
So here's my big, specifically budget question. We charge developers when they come in to make an application. We charge them enough development fee to pay for all the planning that's going to be the costs that will be incurred in planning their application. If we said we're not asking enough of you to fund heritage planning along with the application planning, we're going to have to load it onto development fees and look at that. Do you think the community actually thinks and expects that we do that?
Well, the budget, there's already now a budget for HCD studies, like $10 million a year. And that money came from development charges, so it's already being funded through development charges.
So the practices there, we need to layer this on.
Yeah.
I see. Thank you so much. I'd love to see this for the other two neighborhoods if this has been this type of tool has been created. Yeah.
No, but the Lawrence Park West is definitely proceeding.
Oh,
the other one, Don Mills, it's way behind. There's so much change in Don Mills that's going to be very hard. There's a couple of neighborhoods out of is it 9 or 11 neighborhoods? 12?
Yeah.
That were planned. There's a couple there's still some of the original stuff there.
Right.
But, but it's also a question of looking at this thing, not just in terms of stay as it is, but how can we move forward and maintain the character of the neighborhood? Not just,
I know
random changes.
Don Mills, homes that are perfect mid-century modern are turning into faux chateaus before our eyes, and we haven't done anything.
Out of scale and makes everything else look mean, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think, Councillor Carroll, you have a motion?
I do.
Just to procedural motion?
The dinner break procedural motion? Woohoo. That the Budget Committee for City Hall, Scarborough, and North York Civic Center consultation receive for information the public presentations and the communications submitted by members of the public. This date, January 9th, 2018.
All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody, for coming. We'll be adjourning till 6 p.m.